everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to T1D with Maddie, episode 13. We are back around 1 year later, so everything will now be 13, 14, 15, and so on and so forth here. Seeing as though we are starting the second year of T1D with Maddie episodes, and today I'm just going to sit and share my opinion. What do I think is easier to deal with? Or is like better, I guess, for diagnosis age as a type 1 diabetic, to be diagnosed when you're super young or to be diagnosed older. Now, there's benefits to both, and there's definitely negatives to both. Excuse me if I still sound sick. I am still recovering from whatever, God knows what I have, and it absolutely sucks. But anyways, I was diagnosed later on in life. I was diagnosed at 19. Now, I'm not as old as some people are. Like, some people are diagnosed into their 30s, 40s, 50s plus. When they're well into their adulthood, almost into their older years here. I was diagnosed in my late teens, almost into my 20s. But whereas a lot of people are diagnosed younger than 10, some people are diagnosed at 2 and 3 years old and they don't remember. Some are diagnosed in elementary school, middle school, high school, all over the place. So first of all, if you're diagnosed young, I guess the one thing I could say is, like, you're not going to remember anything else but the life of a type 1 diabetic. So it's not like you're going to be missing anything, or you might not feel as upset that you have a condition because you've dealt with it your whole entire life and it hasn't really, been nothing but really normal for you to check your blood sugar or change your pump out or count your carbs or give yourself a shot. It hasn't been anything but normal for you. Whereas with someone like me, living as a non-diabetic for 19, almost 20 years, to have all of a sudden this shock of change and adaptation, it can be rather difficult. Now, for me, it wasn't so much adapting to diet change because I have a very healthy diet, and always have, and always ate fairly well throughout my 19 years of being a non-diabetic. But it's an adjustment to be mindful of what's going on with your blood sugars and understanding what can happen. Whereas before, like, I could go out and exercise and not worry about, oh, am I going to go high? Am I going to go low? Same with certain times when you go to bed. Like, I always have to make sure my blood sugar is at a normal level or a decent level before I go to sleep. We don't want really high numbers. We don't want really low numbers. So there's a lot of extra work that goes in if you switch some point in your life where you can remember being a non-diabetic. And I remember the days of being non-diabetic, and I miss the freedom of it. I don't so much miss, like, not being a non-diabetic. That really doesn't bother me. I just miss more of, I wish I could be spontaneous and do this and not worry, kind of thing. So that's kind of like a benefit of being young, but a con of being older. However, I think a really strong point in being that you are diagnosed older is that you're more mature to understand the diagnosis, and you maybe can handle it a little bit better emotionally. I feel like teenagers that are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes have it hardest because, number one, they're going through puberty and maturation of their body and their brain. So I definitely feel like they have a hard time accepting it, or maybe like they're going to live in denial more and, just want to be like any other typical teenager and do whatever and not worry about a medical condition. So I feel like a teenager has the hardest time dealing with a type 1 diabetes diagnosis. However, if you're above 18, 19, 20, you should have enough maturity and a level of understanding to understand that you can live with this disease. It's just going to take a little bit of effort and harder work. And I also feel like being diagnosed later has its benefits of not being in puberty. I don't have to deal with the crazy growth spurts that maybe a 13 or 14-year-old with type 1 diabetes has to go through. Or maybe a child who is diagnosed at 6 and 7, they are going to have one heck of a time controlling their blood sugars when they hit their teens. Because all those hormones trying to find a balancing act with their body, their weight, their mind, and how they're growing as a person, all those hormonal influences have a hard time on blood sugars. They're very hard on blood sugars, and when you have to regulate it with synthetic insulin instead of your own body, that's very difficult. So I consider myself very lucky that I went through puberty without having to deal with type 1 diabetes, and that I also had a very mature understanding of what was going on, and that I could really take care of myself, and I could take care of myself from the get-go. I couldn't imagine, like, having a parent take care of me. Not saying my parents couldn't have taken care of me if I was diagnosed younger, but I definitely feel like that's a lot of struggle and a lot of emotional capacity for a parent to watch their child go through this and like to have a parent give a little boy or a little girl a shot and have the child wonder, why do I have to get this shot when my sister or brother doesn't, or this kid doesn't, or this person doesn't? And like to inflict pain on their own child, like to keep them alive, is like, I couldn't, that's hard to fathom for me. So that to me is a benefit, but a con. A benefit to being older, but a con to being younger. So I feel like no matter what age you're diagnosed, you're gonna have more beneficial things like not remembering and not really understanding why you have it, to whereas like the maturity level at a person being diagnosed older, they're gonna understand it at a little bit better level than maybe a 5-year-old kid. Like a 5-year-old kid isn't exactly going to understand like why I have to take these needles. Whereas like me from the get-go, when I knew I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I instantly knew it was going to involve injections. It was going to involve inflicting pain on myself that I really probably didn't want to do, but you just get used to it. And I feel like as a child grows with type 1 diabetes, if they are diagnosed young, they get so used to it. And I feel like as type 1 diabetics, no matter what age we are diagnosed at, we are special people with warrior-like personalities, I guess you could say, like anything and everything we can handle, because we literally play a balancing act and a balancing game with our own lives every single day. Like any slip up can cause us to die. At any point we could fall asleep, and if our blood sugar is too low, we could die. Or even if it's too high, we could wake up feeling nauseous and sick, and you may end up being in DK and going back to the hospital. So to me, it doesn't really matter at what age is a better age to be diagnosed. And the hard thing is too, is I can only speak from one side of it, and so can all of you. Either you were diagnosed at a very young side of type 1 diabetes, or a very older side of type 1 diabetes. However, I do vouch more for being diagnosed older, only because I feel like the maturity and the understanding and the emotional piece to dealing with diabetes is much easier than that of seeing a child go through it, because a child doesn't really have that emotional capacity yet. They're still growing and developing their personality, what they like to do, what they don't like to do, and to add a medical condition on top of that and their growth and maturation physically with hormones, like, to me, is not easy to deal with. So I feel like being diagnosed older is a lot easier. But some people would say I wouldn't want to be diagnosed older, because then you would only want to go back to the non-diabetic life. Well, absolutely. If I could get rid of this disease by doing 25 jumping jacks and 15 push-ups in less than 30 seconds, I would gladly do it to get myself back to non-diabetic level. I'd even take a day. If a genie could grant me a wish to be a non-diabetic for one day, I would do it again. I would do it in a heartbeat. It wouldn't take much effort for me to say yes to that. However, I feel like once you get so accustomed to having type 1 diabetes as an older person and knowing what was in the past and understanding like this is your now and this is your future, like, just accept it. I mean, it's so hard to do, but you need to accept it. So like I said, I vouch more for the side that I came from as far as age and diagnosis, whereas some of you might vouch more for the younger person because you would, much rather not have anything else but type 1 diabetes, so that you've been used to it your whole entire life. So anyways, please let me know down below what you think of this, what your opinion is. I'd love to hear it. Like I said, there's no right way or wrong way, because honestly, we don't get to pick what age we're diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It can happen at any point in our lives. So if any of you are watching this and are non-diabetics, please keep this in mind. You do not have to be young to be diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. They're finding more and more now that anything under the age of 21 is considered normal. And anything over 30 or 40 is considered latent. However, more and more people are getting diagnosed later, or there are more and more people being misdiagnosed with type 2 diabetes, when in fact they have type 1.5 diabetes or type 1 diabetes that is a super slow form, and they will need insulin or an insulin pump eventually, because their body is going through the autoimmune process a lot slower than my body or a younger person's body did. So anyways, please let me know what you think of this down below. And as always, if you have suggestions for me for any episodes of T1D with Maddie, let me know. I deal with all kinds of controversial topics. You can see my playlist called T1D with Maddie here on my channel and see what I've talked about thus far. And if you want to add anything more, or you want me to delve into a very controversial topic, That's what this is here for. This is what this is here for, to share my opinions, share my research that I've done, share the knowledge that I have experienced living with type 1 diabetes. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. We'll pick the winners for the meters on Saturday when I go live again. I do plan on going live again this Saturday. It'll probably be a little bit later than 5 o'clock. Maybe like closer to 6 or 7 o'clock. It depends, but I will pick those winners for you guys then, and then again I will get those shipped out as soon as possible. I hope your first day of 2020 has been wonderful and you've set some good goals for yourself, both as a diabetic and as a person. So until next time, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye.